Hello everybody and welcome to this session. Today we are going to discuss about the elasticity of. First, let us see what does elasticity of demand mean. Previously we have discussed about demand. Demand is the amount or the quantity that is needed by the customers or the consumers. And law of demand states that people might buy more when the price becomes less, or there is an inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded, keeping other things constant. Other things means the determinants of demand remains constant in order to establish law of demand. And law of demand only tells us that the relationship between price and demand, the direction of the relationship between price and quantity demanded, but it doesn't tell us how much the relationship or the strength of the relationship between price and demand. Higher price does not always result in greater total revenue. The manager's concern is to increase the total revenue, but sometimes higher price do not increase our total revenue. What is the reason? The reason should be known by the manager. The manager have to understand the probable effect of price on total changes of total revenue. Without knowing the effect of price on total revenue, increasing or decreasing the price is valueless. So the manager have to know the effect of price change on total revenue. Thus, here is a point. Elasticity of demand tells us how much or to what extent the quantity demanded will change in response to change in any determinant. The determinants may include the price, the income, substitution, complement, price changes. So it includes so many factors, but our concern here is the price. The elasticity of demand states that how much or to what extent the quantity demanded will change in response to the price. We can say that is demand elasticity of price or price elasticity of demand. Demand elasticity is the responsiveness or the sensitivity of the demand to changes in the price. When the price changes, demand elasticity tells us how much it is responded, to what extent it responds to the price change, or it expresses the strength, the amount of strength that the relationship between price and quantity demanded. It tells the strength, not only the direction, but also it tells the strength of the relationship between price and demand. Mathematically, we can express price elasticity of demand as percentage change in quantity divided by percentage change in price. Percentage change in price. More briefly, elasticity of demand can be expressed as percentage of quantity divided by percentage change of price, such as change in quantity equals the final quantity minus the initial quantity. Change in price equals the final price minus the initial price. So change in percentage change in quantity equals final price final quantity minus final initial quantity divided by average quantity. That means the average quantity is the initial quantity plus the final quantity divided by 2. It gives us the average quantity, and the same is true for the price. And when we replace this value, this with the percentage change in quantity, and this with percentage change in price. So we can get elasticity of demand equals percentage change in quantity divided by change in price times P average divided by Q average. You can also see this example. This one is 1 point, and this one is the initial, the other point. So we can make this point, for example, the initial point, or we can make it this one the initial and the other is final. For example, if we make this one initial, okay, this one final point, and this one is initial point, so we can calculate elasticity of demand using this equation. Now let us see types of demand elasticity. The first one is price elasticity that we have discussed before, and second one is cross elasticity. It is the elasticity of demand as a result of change of price of the substitutes. And the income elasticity is elasticity of demand, or the responsiveness of the demand in response to consumers' income. And price expectation elasticity of demand is elasticity of demand, or the responsiveness of the demand with respect to the consumer's expectation. Consumers may expect sometimes, they will expect low price in the future or high price in the future on some commodity based on. Price elasticity of demand is usually, by the way, demand is usually more elastic. Price elasticity of demand is more elastic in the long run than in the short run. Why? What's the reason? Because the consumer can get more time to change to the other products. When we raise the price in the short run, the consumer may not have time to get a substitute, but in the long run they may get a substitute. That's why in the long run price elasticity of demand is more elastic than in the short run. This is an example. For example, if we increase the price of electricity, in the short run they may not get substitute, but in the long run they may get a substitute. Elasticity of linear demand, we can express elasticity of demand with linear equation like this. Quantity demanded equals alpha naught alpha x times px, alpha y py, alpha m, and alpha h. And these factors, these coefficients, represent this, the change in quantity demanded, or the derivation of quantity demanded with respect to price. And this one is the average of price divided by the quantity demanded. This one is elasticity of demand. So when we want to calculate elasticity of demand, so if the coefficient is given, so we replace this coefficient with this, and we just take this P average divided by Q average. So we can get elasticity of demand if the equation is given like this. Here is an example. The daily demand for invigilator price of demand shoes is estimated to be QXD is given like this with this equation, and X represents the amount of advertising spent on shoes, and the other is also, as you can read it, PX is the price of good, X, PY is the price of good Y, and M is the income, the average income. Suppose X sells 25 a pair, good Y sells at 35, and the company utilizes 50 units advertising, and the average consumer income is this one. Calculate and determine own price elasticity, gross price elasticity, and income elasticity of the demand. based on the above equation. Based on the previous equation, so we can just calculate like this. We can calculate like this. Elasticity of demand on elasticity of demand can be calculated with this equation. And if we want to calculate the other elasticity of demand, so we can use this equation, and we can also replace px. For example, if we want to calculate income elasticity, we replace px with income and the coefficient of income. This will be the coefficient of income. So like that we can calculate, and you can just see from here it's already calculated. This is the range of values for price elasticity of the demand. This table shows the price elasticity of demand range. If price elasticity of demand is greater than 1, it is called as elastic, and during that, change in quantity demand greater than change in price. The consumer, it means it can be interpreted as consumer is more responsive to price change. Consumer is more responsive to price change, and the curve will looks like this. It looks like this. And when the price elasticity of demand is less than 1, it will be inelastic, and change in quantity demand is less than change in price. The consumers are not very responsive. They are less responsive to the price change. They are lost, and the graph looks like this. The demand curve looks like this. And when price elasticity of demand equals 1, it will be unit elastic, and the change in quantity demand equals change in price. And the graph looks like this. The change in quantity demanded equals the change in price. And the others are perfectly elastic when price elasticity demand is infinity, and the change in quantity demand is very, very higher than that of the change in price. Infinitely, the consumers are infinitely responsive. If we raise the price, they will not buy anything. They will not buy anything. And this one is price elasticity demand is 0, perfectly inelastic. The change in quantity demand is very, very much less than that of the change in price, and the consumers are totally unresponsive to buy. They buy the same thing regardless of the price raises. When we raise the price, they are not responsive. They buy the same. They buy the same, and the demand curve looks like this. Here is another example. The X corporation produces a good called X that is normal good. If competitors Y makes a substitute good that it makes under the name Y, good Y is an inferior good. How will the demand for good X change if consumer income increases? As we have discussed before, when the consumer income increases, the income or the demand for inferior good decreases, and the demand for normal good increases. So that is a principle in order to answer this question. Based on that principle, we can answer this question. Now let us see factors influencing price elasticity of demand. By the way, price elasticity of demand can be highly affected by the brand strength. If the brand strength is good, if there is reputation, or if the brand is well known, so the products with strong brand loyalty, for example Coca-Cola, and the reputation tend to be price inelastic. When the Coca-Cola raises the price, so it will be inelastic. The customers are less responsive to the price change because of the brand strength. And the other is necessity. The more necessity of the product, the more the demand to be inelastic. The consumers are inelastic. The consumers are less responsive for the necessity goods For example, fuel. The fuel are necessary for the vehicles of the consumer, so it is a necessity good, so they are less inelastic. Habit. The habit is another factor to make the consumer less responsive to the price change. For example, if if an individual is addicted with cigarette, so he has a habit of using cigarette, thus he is less responsive for the increasement of the price because of the habit and the availability of substitute. If there are alternative substitute, the price is elastic. The price is more elastic because when the price raises, the consumer can change to the other substitute, and the other is the time. If we have more time, we can have an option to change to the other. We can have time to replace with the other items. So in the short run, the price changes is less inelastic. The price changes tend to have less impact on the demand. That means inelastic. In the long run, the consumers get another chance to replace the items. So in the long run, it will be elastic. Now let us see the relationship between price elasticity and total revenue. By the way, managers should be or have to aware about the relationship among price elasticity and total revenue. Before increasing or decreasing the price, a manager have to understand the effect of the price on the income, on the total revenue. If the demand is elastic, an increase in price will lead to a decrease in total revenue. If the demand is elastic, so an increase in price will lead to a decrease in total revenue. On the other side, if a demand is inelastic, an increase in price will lead to an increase in total revenue. So a manager have to understand the relationship between price and total revenue before raising or decreasing the price. If the demand is unitary, that means if the demand is unitary, price elasticity of demand is unitary, then the change in price will be offset by the equal change in quantity. That means when we increase the price of the goods, so it will be compensated by a decrease in the quantity of the demand. Thus, revenue remains the same. Ultimately, the revenue will not change. If the elasticity of demand is unitary, that is 1. Here is an example. The demand function is given by the equation like this, where P is the price per unit and QED is the quantity demanded in units per period. Calculate QED and price which maximize the total revenue. And the other question is analyze the elasticity degree for QD equals 10 and QD equals 70. By the way, the demand curve can be written in terms of P as a function of D. So we just calculate P from this. We isolate P from this equation and we write as this. And we know that total revenue is equal to price times quantity demanded or quantity sold. This is quantity demanded or quantity sold. So total revenue is price times quantity demanded. Price is given like this. Here is price. So we replace the price with this and we just put times quantity demanded and we can get quadratic equation for the total revenue. The quadratic equation for the total revenue. And marginal revenue is calculated as the derivation of the first derivation of total revenue. That means marginal revenue is the change in total revenue as a result of 1 unit change in quantity demanded, or 1 unit sale. 1 unit sale. The first derivative of total revenue looks like this. So to find the value of the quantity demand where TR is maximized, we set marginal revenue equals 0. That means the derivation of total revenue equals 0, and quantity demanded will be 40, and substitute quantity demand in the price equation, that means here, so we can get price as 20. So using this formula, we can calculate elasticity of demand. Here, for derivative of demand, the first derivative of demand with regard to price, we can use as -2, this one, because when we derive this one, we can get derivation of quantity demand with respect to price equals -2, and P is this one, 20, and QD is 40, so elasticity of demand is -1, or absolute value of elasticity of demand is equal to 1. Let us see in graphical form. This is the demand curve. The demand curve for the previous equation. At quantity 40, at the point of 40, it will be unit elastic, as we have discussed before in the previous slide. And here, as the price increases, total revenue remains the same. When we raise the price, and the quantity demand will decrease with the same amount, and ultimately the total revenue remains the same. In the portion of elasticity, as the price increases, the total revenue decreases. Here in the portion of elastic, the price increases, the total revenue also increases. And at this point, at unit elastic point, the total revenue will arrive at maximum point. That is this one is, by the way, the total revenue. Let us add one more solved question. The initial price is given 10, and the quantity demanded during this price is 100. When the price rises to 20, the quantity demanded fails to 90. Is the decision right or wrong? Raising a price is a decision conducted by a manager, so is that right or wrong? In order to say right or wrong, we have to calculate the total revenue. In the two cases. The total revenue, as you know, equals price times quantity. So we calculate price 10 times 100, it will be 1000, and 20 times 90, it will be 1800. So raising a price is the right decision, and the elasticity is the extent of elasticity is inelastic, because as the price increases, the total revenue increases. Total revenue equals price times quantity. As the price increases, the total revenue increases. So it is inelastic, and we can see graphically. The initial price and quantity is this one. The initial price is 10, and the quantity is 90, and here is the point. Sorry. The initial price is 10, and the initial quantity is 100. So we can calculate this one. The area of this one will be the total revenue at this point. And when we increase the price to 20 from 10 and decrease the quantity to 90, the demand decreases, and the portion, the area of this rectangle will be the total revenue. And let me give you one more question. make the price, the initial price is as it is, the initial price is 10 and the quantity demanded is 250. When the price rises to 20, the quantity demanded fails to 50. So try with this. Let me write. Make this one as it is, and the quantity demand, this one, change it into 250. And when the price rises to 20, this is as it is, the quantity demand fails to 50. And the last one is an exercise. Try to solve by your own. And this is all about today's discussion. If you have comment or question, you are welcome. Bye for today. Have a good time.